My cute boss ran past me on the trail at 6 in the morning, glanced over her shoulder with a smile that had no business being that dangerous before sunrise, and said, "If you can catch me, I'll let you." She never finished that sentence, standing still. But here is what you need to understand before I tell you what happened next. She was not just any woman. She was my boss. My actual department directing, nobody tests her twice boss. And I was the employee who sat 3 seats to her left in every staff meeting, keeping his head down, doing his job, and reminding himself daily that disciplined men do not chase feelings they cannot professionally survive. But my cute boss ran past me on that trail. She looked back at me with those eyes, and she let those words hang in the cold morning air like a dare wrapped inside a secret. "If you can catch me, I'll let you." I am not a man who chases his boss down a trail before breakfast. But I caught her, and what she said I could do, what actually came after, "I'll let you," was only the beginning of a story that neither of us had planned, both of us had desperately needed, and one of us almost walked away from before it changed everything. If you have ever stood at the edge of something real and almost let it go, stay with me, because you do not want to miss what she said next. My name is Ethan Carter. I am 32. I manage hospital operations at Meridian Medical Center, which is a polite way of saying I am the person who keeps everything from falling apart quietly, behind the scenes, without applause. I am good at my job. I am good at routine. And after the woman I loved looked me in the eye 2 years ago and told me she had stopped being in love with me, kindly, carefully, like she had been rehearsing it, I became very good at something else too. Staying safe, staying small, keeping every feeling inside a perimeter I could manage. Every morning I ran the trail behind Ridgewood Park. 4 miles, same time, same playlist, same silence. It was not joy, but it was mine. Then one Tuesday, Claire Donovan moved into my neighborhood. And 3 mornings later, without warning, without permission, she ran straight through the only quiet thing I had left. She was my boss. She had been for 8 months. She ran hospital meetings the way some people run marathons, ahead of everyone, never breaking a sweat, never once looking like she needed anyone to keep up. She was brilliant. She was guarded. And she was the one woman on earth I had absolutely no business noticing the way I noticed her. But here is the thing about a 6 a.m. trail. There are no titles out there, no job descriptions, no professional distance, just cold air, and 2 people, and a sentence she left unfinished on purpose. For 3 weeks, the trail became something neither of us spoke about at work. We would pass each other in hospital hallways, exchange polite professional nods, sit across boardroom tables discussing staffing budgets, like 2 strangers who had never seen each other in running shoes. But every morning before sunrise on that quiet path behind Ridgewood Park, Claire Donovan would appear like she had been carved out of the cold air itself. Dark auburn ponytail swinging, breath visible in the gray light, that sideways glance she gave me when I caught up to her at the second hill. She would say something small, something sharp. "You run like a man avoiding something. You always answer questions you weren't asked. Only when the answer is interesting." And then she would pull ahead. Every time. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself a woman like Claire, composed, brilliant, the kind of person who could silence a meeting with one raised eyebrow, was not interested in a man who folded his running shirts in thirds and went to bed at 9:45. But then she said it. That cold Friday in November. The morning I had not slept. The morning my mother's voice was still in my head from a phone call where she had quietly asked if I was ever going to let someone in again. The morning Claire stood stretching at the trailhead, looked up at me with eyes that were softer than they had any right to be, and said, "You're 2 minutes late." And then she ran, and looked back, and said the words, "If you can catch me, I'll let you." I caught her at the top of the hill, both of us breathing hard, both of us pretending the hill was the reason. She looked at me, and for the first time in 8 months, under all the precision, all the professional polish, all the careful distance, I saw it, the crack, the flicker of something tired, something lonely, something that had been carrying weight in silence for a long, long time. And what she said next, walking beside me with the valley spread below us, was the sentence that started everything. But it was also the sentence that, 6 weeks later, almost ended everything before it had a chance to begin. Because Claire Donovan was not just guarded, she was hiding from someone too, and I had no idea that the woman who had just dared me to chase her down a trail had been quietly, carefully, terrifyingly close to walking away from her own life 6 months before we ever met. The dinner was her idea. Italian place on Clarendon Street, far from the hospital, quiet lighting, the kind of table where two people either talk about everything or run out of words by the appetizer. Claire arrived exactly on time. She sat down, composed, professional, like she had prepared for this the same way she prepared for board meetings. And for the first 10 minutes, she was exactly that, prepared. Then I asked her what she had ordered on her last birthday dinner, just to see what she looked like when she answered something she hadn't rehearsed. She blinked. Butternut squash ravioli. Why? Just wanted to see you without the armor for a second. She went quiet, and then something in her face shifted, slowly, like a door opening just 1 inch, enough to feel the warmth behind it, but not enough to walk through. She told me she didn't trust easily, that the last man she loved had spent 2 years quietly asking her to be smaller, softer, less, and that she had let him because she had mistaken shrinking for sacrifice. That when it ended, she had promised herself she would never again let feelings move faster than her ability to protect herself. I told her about Jess, about the apartment key, about the years I spent turning loneliness into discipline because it was easier to call it strength. We stayed 2 hours past the check, and when we reached her car, she paused and said, almost to herself, "That was more than I planned to give tonight." "Me too," I said. She nodded once, got in, drove away. And for 6 weeks after that, something beautiful started to grow quietly between us. 3 more dinners, trail mornings that lasted longer, conversations that went deeper than either of us announced. I learned the sound of her real laugh, not the polished one she gave meetings, but the one that escaped her when something caught her off guard. I learned that she called her brother every Sunday, that she loved old black and white films, that she carried the weight of her work home every night, not because she was weak, but because she cared too much to leave it at the door. And she was learning me too. But then, on a cold Tuesday evening after our 4th dinner, something changed. We were standing outside the restaurant. The space between us had gotten small in a way that felt inevitable. I could see in her eyes that she felt it, that she knew exactly what was happening, that she was standing at an edge, and then she stepped back, just slightly, just enough. "I'll see you Monday," she said, evenly, professionally, and got in her car. After that, the trail mornings went quiet. Earbuds in, shorter strides, professional nods. The warmth, all of it, pulled behind a wall I could feel but not reach. And I gave her space because I respected her. But I will not lie to you. It cost me. Every morning, every hallway, every meeting where she sat 3 seats away and felt like 3 miles. Then, one morning, I changed my route. Not in anger, not to make a point. Just because quietly waiting on a trail for someone who had decided to stop meeting you there is not patience. It is hope wearing a disguise. And I was done disguising things. I did not know that on that same morning Claire had stood at her window with her coffee, watching the street for a figure that never passed. I did not know she had gone to the trail anyway, ran it alone. stood at the overlook for 15 minutes staring at the valley, asking herself the question she had been running from for weeks. What are you so afraid of? I did not know any of that. What I knew was that at 7:14 on a Thursday evening, 3 weeks after I changed my route, someone knocked on my door. I opened it expecting a delivery. It was Claire, the dark coat, hair down, the first time I had ever seen it that way. No armor, no preparation, just her, standing in the hallway light, looking like a woman who had made a decision and was not going to waste another second guessing it. She said, "I'm not going to make this clinical. Just let me say it." I stepped back. She came in, stopped just inside the door, arms crossed gently like she was holding something fragile inside her chest. "I pulled back," she said. "You know that." "I know." I told myself it was the timing, the job, my history. She looked at me directly. "That was partly true. And the other part." She took one slow breath. "The other part is that somewhere between that trail and that dinner and every ridiculous morning I tried to convince myself this was nothing, I realized I had already let you in, and that terrified me more than I knew how to say out loud." The room was completely silent. "The last time I loved someone," she said quietly, "I lost myself trying to keep him, and when it ended, I made myself a promise that I would never again move towards something I wasn't sure of." She paused. "But Ethan, here is what I have learned standing on that overlook without you." She looked up, and her eyes, those quick, careful, brilliant eyes, were full. "Waiting until I am completely sure is just fear with better vocabulary." I crossed the room in 3 steps. I reached up and tucked her hair back from her face, slow and deliberate, the way you do something you have thought about longer than you have admitted. "You changed your route," I said softly. "So did you," she whispered. "I know, but you came back." And then she smiled. Not the polished one, not the professional one, but the real one, the rare one, the one I had been quietly collecting like something precious every time it slipped past her guard. "Don't make me say it twice," she said. "You don't have to," I told her. And I kissed her. Not urgently. Not like something that had been held back too long and finally broke free, but like something built honestly. One cold trail morning at a time, one real conversation at a time, one terrifying step toward each other at a time, and had finally, quietly, beautifully arrived. When she pulled back, she pressed her hand flat against my chest and laughed softly. A surprised laugh, a relieved laugh, the laugh of someone who had been carrying something heavy for a very long time and had just, finally, set it down. "You are," she said, shaking her head, "so annoyingly decent." "I can work on that." "Don't," she said. "It's the whole thing." 3 months later, her running shoes lived by my door. 6 months after that, I knew the sound of her breathing in the next room was the most peaceful sound I had ever heard. A year after that, I got down on one knee at the overlook above the valley, the same place she had stood alone asking herself what she was afraid of, and I asked her to stop running from the rest of her life and run it with me instead. She cried before I finished the question, got embarrassed about crying, said yes 3 times like once wasn't enough to hold it. And on the morning after our wedding, we ran the trail together. Same path, same hill, same cold sunrise air. At the top, she slowed, looked out over the valley, reached across and laced her fingers through mine. Then she looked at me with that sideways smile, the dangerous one, the one that started all of this, and said, "I let you catch me on purpose, you know." I stared at her. "You rigged it." "I gave you an opportunity." She looked back at the valley. "There's a difference." "That is absolutely the same thing." "It really isn't." I laughed. And I kissed her there on the overlook, in the early light, with the whole world below us, and nowhere else either of us needed to be. The title made it sound like a chase, but the truth was never about catching her. It was about two people who had both been running from something, from heartbreak, from silence, from the terrifying vulnerability of trying again, and who finally, on an ordinary trail in an ordinary neighborhood, ran toward each other instead. That trail did not just give me a love story. It gave me back the version of myself that still believed one was possible. And if you are out there right now, running from something, protecting yourself from something, telling yourself you will try again when the timing is better, when the fear is smaller, when you are more sure, I need you to hear this. The timing will never be perfect. The fear does not disappear first, and the people worth running toward are almost always the ones who scare you the most. Don't change your route. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of something you once let go or something you are still holding on to, leave a comment below and tell me your story. Share this with someone who needs it today. And subscribe, because the next story is already waiting for you. And I promise, you do not want to miss it.